Welcome back, everybody. We are doing a holiday show. I'm wearing my holiday plaid. My next guest is also wearing her holiday plaid. Shout out to J. Crew in case they want to support this podcast.
Sure.
Um, Christmas is in 2 days by the time this airs, but so we wanted to be holiday appropriate for those of you who celebrate. Um, Joining me today is my colleague Kyra Tyler she's a former AO or admissions officer, sorry for the lingo, at Brandeis. Hi, Kyra.
Hi, Beth. Thanks for having
Hi.
me.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to talk about this today. And we were batting around different ideas, and you said, what about those people who sort of unintentionally ruin students' college process?
Yeah,
And I jumped right on it because I wouldn't say that anyone has ruined my son's college process, but I
sure.
would say that people have unintentionally offered terrible advice and insight that they think they have, and like if
Yeah,
that my son didn't have me would probably be send him spinning in a lot of
yeah,
different directions.
yeah.
um, and so we thought today we could offer advice on how to fend that off, but
hmm
also perhaps the people who listen will also recognize, ooh, I did that, I should not do that.
Yeah,
That's fine. All right, so why don't we start with this? What do you mean when you say don't let others ruin the process?
sure. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Anytime I can talk about helping people set boundaries, I'm happy to do so because
Yes.
I think there's a lot of crossing happening and I want people to find a space that they feel like can be their own. So that's kind of what I mean is that I think because college as a process is talked about so much, and everybody feels like they know what they're talking about and has an
Yes.
opinion, right? That then they feel like so my nephew is applying to college. Of course, I can ask him where he's going and how's it going. And like, well, my neighbor got into XYZ school and oh, what are your grades? It becomes an interrogation and it's really nobody else's business. So that's what I mean when I say, like, let's think about ways to not let if you're the student, someone else, an interloper, however well-meaning they may be, ruin it for you. Or if you're a parent, let's figure out ways to help protect our children who are feeling a little bit vulnerable, maybe,
Hmm.
so that it's not ruined for them.
Right. And, I would just share a story, which is so my son, as listeners know, and is a
Yeah.
senior and going through the process right now. And what I have noticed over the last probably 3/4 of a year is that when
hmm
we get together, which is not very frequently, but when we are with other people,
Sure.
it is immediately the first topic of conversation. People want to find out where they applied, and
Yep.
then sometimes they react, and not always positively,
Yep.
like, "Oh, why there? Like, why not? Does he
Right.
need
That's a
to
party school. And it's
right, or what, like, yes. Or, and my favorite is, my son was at a wedding and was talking to a gentleman, and he said, well, why aren't you applying to Virginia? And my son said, well, I'm, because he thought that was similar to some of the schools that my son is applying to. It's not.
sure.
But also, quite honestly, my son, I love my son. He's a smart kid, but he's not, Virginia has expectations and he is not there.
Sure.
And the guy said to my son, said, well, it's not really on my list. I haven't really considered it. I'm pretty sure it's a reach. And the guy said, what are your SAT scores? And of course, my son felt like, I guess it's an adult. So he shares and he's
Right.
like, those are Virginia numbers. They're not Virginia numbers. I can tell you that, right? So, like, what are you doing? What makes you, this guy has no idea. He was
Sure.
obviously not trying to be a jerk, but
Right.
illustrating exactly what you are saying. So, what's some advice that you have for Jack in the future and other students for how do you avoid those types of situations?
Sure. So, shout out to Jack. You're doing great, buddy. What I would say for the Jacks of the world, and my Noah, I have a nephew who's also going through the
There you
process,
go.
is that I would say I understand feeling a little trapped by societal norms about an adult asks you, you were brought up a certain way, you want to be
Yes.
respectful. But I think in this situation, it is okay to say, Thanks for asking. I actually don't really want to talk about it. Like, I've put my apps out. I feel really good about them. I'm ready for rest and relaxation. Like, I want to focus in on the holidays.
Yes.
I would just say, and there are people who will push back or respond to that, but I think that feels pretty innocuous and clear to me. And as a parent, I think if you hear your child expressing their needs in that way, A, great job, we should applaud them,
Yes.
and B, we should support them, right?
Yes.
So if the adult keeps moving and like still pressing on, we should be able to say, like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it's all fine. We'll let you know when there's something to know.
Right, exactly. And I think
Yeah.
that is really good advice. And, I think that I wish I had armed him with language like that.
Yeah.
It sort of rolled off his back. He doesn't care. He knew that he wasn't competitive and he knew that this guy had no idea. But I do
Sure.
think probably in that moment, it would have been nice if he was armed to say, hey, I'm just here, I'm having a good time to celebrate and I don't really want to talk about all that. That's all anyone wants to talk about or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What other advice do you have? So outside of social situations, are there other things that you recommend for students to kind of, take the stress as out of their process as much as possible?
Yeah. I mean, I would say now is a time to get back to the things that bring you joy, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it's safe, hang out with your friends,
Yep.
read some books, go take a walk outside, like maybe take a break from social media. And even if you don't want to do it for everything,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just do it for some schools. I think I would start to put up a couple of fences around this so that it doesn't creep into your life in ways that are going to make you, feel uncomfortable.
Right.
I will say this is also good practice for people, both students and adults, because this will come up again when if they're graduating college,
Mm-hmm.
it immediately starts, what are you doing next year? So
Right.
this is also like helping people build skills around what's their business to know, what's not their business to know, and also what do we have to disclose as a student? I mean, we need to remember that students are more than where they end up, are more than the application process. And so let's be talking about other things. Let's talk about football. Let's talk about
Right.
music. Let's talk about cool movies, podcasts. We have a lot to learn from younger people. Let's do
Right.
that stuff instead.
Exactly. Like, what are you listening to lately? Because that might be way better than the stuff the same old that I do. I love that idea.
100%.
Yes. When you and I have worked together for a very long time,
Yeah.
and when I joined College Coach, I remember you making a suggestion around how you engage as parents with your child about this that I have not employed in my own home, but I will say this, I'm not college obsessed, believe it or not.
You're not.
I'm not. So
You're not.
so I
None of
haven't,
us really are. I think
no,
that's a spoiler for listeners and viewers. None of us really are. We love the
right.
process, but we're pretty low key about it, actually.
Right. Maybe it's because we do it and we know that our kids are going to college and we're not, that
Right.
there's a level of stress that isn't there because we do
Right.
understand how it works. But you had some tips as parents of how to put things in the proper box with students. And I
Yeah.
would love for you to share. I've always remembered it, tried to make the same suggestion with families when I felt like it was getting out of hand. And I would love for you to share that with our listeners.
Sure. So I think if you find, or if you're not self-aware to find this on your own and somebody's telling you
Hmm.
that it's getting to be too much, that as a parent, one of the things that we might want to employ is like, hey, why don't we talk about this on Sunday at 4 o'clock? Right?
Yes.
Like,
Love it.
put some structure around it
Hmm.
so that it's not Tuesday and you're talking about it, while somebody's making dinner, and that's 15 minutes. And then it comes up again an hour and a half later while you're trying to find a show to watch and then shoot. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say, hey, I have some questions about this. Can we talk about it XYZ at XYZ time?
Right.
And that means that everybody can take a breath. People can be prepared. They're not going to be ambushed, and they know that there'll be some structure around the conversation. And I think it means that cooler heads prevail. I think that for people who don't like surprises sprung on them, it means that they can go into this feeling like, I know what I want to talk about. And I have found that those situations make for better progress, better problem solving, more transparency, more honesty, and just a chiller environment in the home.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you also had said, maybe it's college free at dinner time, except for
Yeah,
one day of the week or something
that's
like
right.
that, right? I
That's
love
right.
that
That it's
idea.
Yeah, that it's not every time you guys get home that it's time for the whole. I grew up, I'm the youngest of three, right? So it doesn't mean that every night at dinner we sit and talk about my oldest brother's college process. Like
Right.
that is an ambush kind of situation. It's unfair, gets everybody riled up. Instead, let's just decide we're not going to talk about it at different points. We're not going to talk about it before school. Nobody should be wanting to send their kid off to school these days not feeling good about the home they're leaving.
Right.
Right? Like
Yep.
that's the gift we can give each other. So like,
Yes.
don't talk about it before school. There's enough happening. Don't text your kid at school about it.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Do not interrupt their extracurriculars about it. Find a time and a space where it makes sense and be clear about when you are not going to bring it up.
Right.
I will say we do this in our home. My child is, as you know, not quite old enough for the college process,
Right.
but around her cello practice, because that has to happen every day. The joke is every day that ends in day means you have to practice. And but
That's a good one.
tiger parent. But basically that there are times when we don't talk about it, right?
Mhm.
Like we don't talk about it at the times, just like I said, for college, it's the same thing. What I'm trying to do is to build healthy habits,
Yes. And I think
encourage
it's
healthy
good,
habits.
right? And
I think so.
and walking the walk, right? And not just talking the talk.
Trying very hard.
Trying to. What other, I think those are some really good tips for both parents and students, right? So
Yeah.
if you're a student listening and your parents are bombarding you, you can make that suggestion. If you're a parent and listening, recognize that you're the one who could set those boundaries up. And I bet everybody would be really excited about it.
Correct.
We have a few more minutes, but not too many. And you had some
Yeah.
really good other tips for parents that I
Sure.
wanted to make sure you shared. So,
Yeah. So similarly, as I said, for students about like, let's think about social media and sort of downtime. Same thing for parents. We actually probably, the adults in the room need it more actually than I think our kids. I think our kids are actually getting better about having some break time with their phones, getting a little sick of them. And
mhm,
adults seem to be the one who can't stop doing this.
mhm.
I would encourage parents, take a break. Stop hanging in the chat rooms, stop hanging in the prospective parents of XYZ school, leave your college counselor alone over break. It's not
Right.
an emergency. And also, why don't you like mute notifications as well, or take a little hiatus from covering any, not ours, because we take a chill approach, but
Right.
particularly things around the college search process that are more anxiety inducing,
Right.
right? There's no reason why we can't take a little breather. Everybody can't have some space. The other thing I will say that I'm shocked still happens is, why are we still using we language,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
If it's December 18th and you're still saying how, we're going to apply, please stop it. If you're a student, I'm telling you, I think Beth would agree, please stop it. Like, your parents may be supporting you in this process, 0 to 100%. I don't know. It's your own family situation.
Right.
However, you are, and if you're not, you should be doing the work. This is you going to college.
Right.
So if people are still using we language, and we are getting very close to finding out where people are going to school, this is a good time to reframe. This is not the parent applying to college. This is the student applying to college.
Right. Exactly. We can visit a college
Yes.
together, but
Yes.
you are applying and you are going. So there are moments where the
Correct.
we is okay, but for
Correct.
most of the time, it's you.
Exactly.
Yes.
We are not writing an essay, right? We are
Exactly.
not doing that.
No, we are going and we are going to close on that note because that is a really good one. Kyra, thank you so much for joining and
You're
sharing
welcome.
the years of wisdom that you have gleaned from all of these families that we've worked with, and it's really helpful. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for the time. I loved being here.
Great. Well, we'll have to have you back.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Quickly before we go, next week, Sally is here. We're going to be talking about what to do after all of your applications are in, and New Year's resolutions related to admissions and personal finance. And don't forget, we are here every week at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern. I end with the way every time. I don't know why I forgot it today. Thanks for joining.